I want to talk now about Donald Trump, and the BBC is going to try to have Donald Trump's $10 billion defamation lawsuit thrown out of court. They're going to file a motion to dismiss the case brought by the President after the doctoring of that clip, the address given by Mr Trump on the 6th of January 2021. It implied that he had implored supporters to attack the US Capitol. In fact, his calls were for people to march peacefully. It was false, it was wrong. Will there be legal redress? Well, Luke Gittos is with us now, the lawyer and writer. Luke, thank you for joining me this evening. How far do you think this motion to dismiss will actually get?
Well, what we have at the moment is a plan from the BBC, and it sets out to the Florida court in broad terms how they initially expect to combat this case or respond to it. They're alleging that the court doesn't have jurisdiction, so there is a jurisdictional argument over whether a Florida court can hear a complaint against the BBC. Donald Trump alleged that jurisdiction can be established because the BBC had offices in Florida, whereas actually the document lodged today makes clear that the office that Donald Trump thought was in Florida is actually the office of a third party that ran the BBC streaming services and services like BritBox, etc. So all of this is very complicated and nuanced, but it really matters for the BBC because one other part of this plan is to basically stop Donald Trump from commencing what they call discovery proceedings. In other words, the process through which Donald Trump's lawyers will try and get information out of the BBC. They're trying to basically put a stop to that process until an application to dismiss has been resolved. And of course, it's going to take a lot of the BBC's resources to respond to the very wide-ranging claims that Donald Trump has made. Donald Trump is anticipating seeking discovery with respect to the entire history of the BBC's coverage of him over a span of 10 years. That in itself is likely to be an extremely costly exercise for the BBC to go through. So from the perspective of litigation tactics, I think this application is likely to be important because it allows them to put a stop to the process of discovery that Donald Trump is seeking to put them through. And effectively then they will seek to have some arguments that the case can't even be commenced in the way that Donald Trump wants it to. Now, all of this is very legally interesting, but it's not academic. I mean, if the BBC were subject to the kind of legal process that Donald Trump is anticipating, the kind of wide-ranging court battle that he is thinking of, then this is going to be possibly just as devastating in terms of expense for the BBC than the actual claim itself.
And if it's thrown out, Luke, in Florida, could he just sue them somewhere else? If he's got it wrong, for example, this BBC office point, for example, could he sue them where they have other offices in the United States, California, for example?
In theory, we know that Donald Trump is extremely litigious. You'd have to probably speak to, because in America, each state has its own laws. They also have federal law. But Donald Trump has chosen to sue in a particular state. That has been very widely publicized. I would be very interested to know whether he can simply screw that all up and start again if his lawyers realize he's got it wrong. I mean, but behind all of this, Peter, is the question of how the BBC have got themselves into this position in the first place, because this application doesn't deal with the merits of Trump's claim directly. They've already apologized to Trump for their actions over splicing together his speech. What they do indicate in this document is that they're going to deny any malice behind that. And that was echoed in the BBC's initial responses in the days after we heard about this lawsuit. They were saying that really this was a matter of very low-level editorial decision-making, that there was no overarching plan to discredit the president. And that's hinted at in this document as well. They will basically say, well, this wasn't part and parcel of an ongoing process to discredit the president. And also what's hinted at in this document is that they will probably try and show that it didn't have any impact on Donald Trump's status, position or reputation. So the BBC has hinted at the fact that they will go after discovery regarding Donald Trump's assets and financial dealings, presumably in order, on the one hand, to be able to show that none of Trump's financial interests were affected by this program, but also two, probably throwing their own spanner in the works to give Trump an idea that some things may come to light that maybe he doesn't want to. So this is all part of the back and forth litigation. But I mean, as we said before, Peter, you know, this is the idea that the BBC are in this place to begin with is entirely their own fault. And the documents that have been lodged today are really mounted on technical points. We haven't seen much of the BBC's response to the actual merits of the case against them.
Well, we'll keep a close eye on that. For the meantime, Luke, thank you. Luke Gittos there, who is a lawyer and writer.